Happy Tuesday! Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Valley of Spirits, your go-to podcast for all things World of Warcraft. I'm Jordan.
And I'm Nick. Whether you're raiding, leveling, or just enjoying the lore, we're here to share our weekly experiences and keep you updated on the latest things in Azeroth.
That's right. Today we're diving into our raiding adventures, player versus player highlights, and of course, the latest game updates from Blizzard. So grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and let's get into it. So I did a good amount of raiding this week. I did the Heroic Aberrus on both my Evoker and my Mage, now that my Mage is out-gearing my Warrior. And then I also did the normal on everybody, my Warrior, my Mage, my Monk, my Evoker. And mostly to get some Mage pracky in there. And I, once again, did not get the Legendary on my Evoker. They hate me. F you, Blizzard. It's not funny anymore.
You're right, it's hilarious.
I didn't do any keys or dungeons really at all this week. Soon I think we'll be doing some with our boy Dalendor potentially, but
yeah,
none this week. I did make an alien. Oh, what are the blue aliens? What are they called? The Draenies?
Draenies?
Yeah. Either way, I made an alliance character to play with my buddy, and we'll get to experience the other side for the first time. Pretty
Did it
interesting.
sting? Did it hurt?
It feels weird.
Did your computer start catching fire?
Well, I was doing the traditional Draenei start, and you go to the spot where you fight the Blood Elves, and I clicked on them. They were like a Luminolary Delinar or whatever, right? And I was like, this feels wrong.
They're just saying hi.
Right. It's like, oh, no. It's like the straight up out of the Burning Crusade Blood Elf starting zone.
Yeah.
Like, oh, hurt my soul. So I did do a little bit of Pandaria. I did the LFRs, that's it. Just for poops and giggles, so to speak, right? But nothing really to note there. I still haven't done the scenarios to get my ring. I need to do that. I did get a level or two on my Mage in Cataclysm Classic. So she's 24 now. I know I'm a big deal. Look out. Really made it in time for the PvP World Cup. But that's really it. I've been leveling into Shara, and it was a bit of a nostalgic experience, but I don't think I'm enjoying it as much now as I did then. For sure. And we didn't do any hardcore this week. Nada. We've been saying for weeks we're going to give it a go, though, so we really got to get in there. Now, player versus player this week.
That was great.
Yeah, Nick and I both did some PvP this week.
Yeah.
I did mostly on my Evoker. I did some solo shuffles and some battlegrounds, and I'm kind of thinking I might take a break from the solo queue player versus player for a bit.
Why is that?
I was trying to heal in it, right? I really wanted to heal in it, but
Yeah.
healing in solo shuffles is just awful. Absolutely awful right now.
What do you think makes it awful?
It's people line of sight you and try and dodge, and it depends on when they put the damage down, and especially as an Evoker, 30-yard range, right?
Yeah.
So I have a special problem with this that nobody takes into consideration. So we're going to get more deep into why I am going to be stopping solo shuffles for this season. We'll talk about it in the Tavern Talk.
Okay.
But we played some PvP together with me and a buddy of ours from the guild came in, and it was pretty cool. We'll talk about more of that at the end too, but me and my buddy ended up, his Nick's internet went out for a little bit, and he ended up DCing on the way into a game. And so me and my buddy 2v3'd him, though, which was pretty cool. Yeah. I'm not so sure. We'll talk about this more in the end, too. But I'm not sure if maybe they threw one of their guys to make it even or not. But we'll talk about it. So that's pretty much all I got up to this week. What did you do this week in the vast, very expansive, multiple version World of Warcraft?
Well, I didn't end up doing too much this week since I'm traveling for work, and the laptop I was using was not too good for World of Warcraft. We were in the middle of the raid, and it would like freeze for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Every boss fight.
Pretty much on the pole, yep. He would if we're lusting, his computer can't handle it.
It was bad. And it had everything, like it looked like I was playing on an N64. And it still would freeze.
Yeah, you was playing Super Mario Bros. Blood Elves. It was crazy looking.
Blood Elves. Pretty much. But yeah, no, we ended up actually found a really good deal on a new laptop, so I ended up going to pick that up while I was traveling. But what we did get done this week for rating, as Jordan had mentioned, we ended up doing a heroic, and we got to 8 of 9 before they ended up calling it, which kind of sucks because Jordan really wanted to get that last one.
Yeah, I did end up getting Sarky down, but
yeah, you did do Sarky, but still
yeah.
no legendary.
Nope.
That could have been it. that could have been the drop too, if we would have done it.
I love this game.
For leveling, did the same thing as Jordan did because we have a buddy in the guild that is leveling on the Alliance side, so we figured we'd go help him with endgame content. Unlike starting an alien, I did a human paladin, the most vanilla thing you can do in World of Warcraft.
Dude, straight up missionary, bro.
So it's been fun. I actually started on Alliance back in the day, so it's been cool going back to the old spot and seeing where everything's changed up. For PvP, we did rock out those 3v3s. They were awesome. Loved dominating how we did with the Monk Paladin and Evoker mix. It was nice to have our buddy Monk just break off all that rust and start getting back into it after being gone for a bit.
Yeah,
so it was
he did
nice.
Some good work. Monk's weird in great. PvP too.
It is, but he still did some good work. He kept up with me on damage pretty well.
He's doing some good work.
All right, so that wraps up my week. Like I said, it was pretty light, mainly because of the laptop, and I'm traveling for work, so I'm pretty busy during the week, sadly. But Jordan, I think we got to roll into hotfixes. What's going on with them?
All right, so for hotfixes, these were published on the 11th, the 12th, and the 13th, respectively. In retail, achievement-related creatures were despawning in a Myrdracell, the Dream of Hope. Yes, Blizzard has talked to them, and they'll stick around now, they say. So for the Mists of Pandaria remix hotfixes, they made a couple of item changes. Characters that were non-plate-wearing characters and had the Tusks of Manaroth can now visit Pythagoras at any time at the Infinite Bazaar and trade them for an item that can be used to learn the cosmetic for the plate-wearing character. So that essentially means if you got a plate piece and you can't put it on to add it to your transmog inventory, right? Then, because there's no way for you to trade it to your retail character right now. That is, a plate wearer, for example. So now you can take that item and trade it at the vendor for the one that you just right-click. Now it just pops right into your Appearances tab in Shift P. Bronze caches have increased even more. They have increased 100%. Spools of Thread have also increased to 200%, and Emperor's Shroud reputation has increased by 700%. So it's just more of the same stuff we've been seeing. They're just buffing everything. More bronze, more experience, more rep. I like that they keep changing these reps because it used to be that you would have to almost be expected to be playing the Missive Remix for a couple of almost an hour every day if you wanted to get these reps done.
Yeah.
For the 90-day period. So I'm glad they fixed that.
Well, it is really good because you have such a limited time in there.
And so to Cataclysm Classic, there's a lot of changes in here. They have actually the Arena World Cup is going on as we're recording right now. So we're actually going to wait to talk about some of this until next week. But once it's all done and over with, I'll have some things to say about it. But for now, it'll be over by the time you hear this. I do like how much they're kind of focusing on every version of this game. There's a bunch of mop hotfixes one week. There's a bunch of Cataclysm Classic hotfixes the next week. Once Season of Discovery Phase 4 comes out, I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of hotfixes about that. So they're doing a good job spreading the work out here. But we're going to get into the classic Cataclysm changes. A little bit long-winded, these ones. Valor points will now behave like conquest points, and the weekly cap is being replaced with a rolling seasonal cap. In addition, the cap for the number of times you may earn Valor points from a random dungeon finder each week has been removed. So they're changing this from the old Cataclysm Valor system to essentially more like way Flight Stones work now. The hood of Malfec Wing should now be working again. I'm sure it's an aesthetic problem, yeah. Is your game freezing? Did you cast Rack during the Sinistra fight? Well, have no fear. Blizzard figured out what was making the cast cold enough to freeze your computer. Rotten to the Core is now being granted properly after completing the achievement. Staff of Disintegration, acting more like the Staff of Dysfunction during the Kel'Thas encounter. Well, Blizzard got a prescription, and it works properly now, wink. Enjoying your time at the Dark Moon Fair? Well, get ready for more of it. It's moving from once a month to every 2 weeks, which is cool. I like the Dark Moon Fair.
I did too.
can be a place to hang out every so often, right?
Oh,
Or something
yeah.
like that even.
Yep.
Do you have second guesses about your recent server race faction change or anything like that? Well, the paid transfers have been reduced to 3-day cooldown. So once you go to a server, if you want to move to another one, you have to wait 3 days now instead of a week.
Sometimes those RP servers are just weird.
There can be all kinds of reasons to switch servers, so we're not going to elaborate on that anymore. Magmaw will no longer fall backwards during Impale, preventing players from doing damage. Nice. Remember how we always mentioned Blizzard hating on the Horde? Well, an issue was fixed in Eye of the Storm, where both factions will receive the same point tick for captured locations. Interesting, isn't it? Now the Horde receives the same. That doesn't necessarily mean we were ahead or behind, but it sure sounds like we were not getting enough points, which
No, it was that we were
Blizzard.
behind.
Yeah, I imagine. So, Nick, you want to start us off with class changes? You're better at reading than me, that's for sure.
Yeah, let's take class changes. A tiny dagger was appearing when casting a variety of spells and abilities. No idea how it got in there, but Blizzard has removed it. Pug to Frost Mage, and now you had to turn down your volume. They should be quieter now. Apparently, they were casting a louder version of Frozen Orb inside dungeons. Blizzard told them to quiet down.
That's a really sharp sound, too. Like all
Yeah.
the ice and glass kind of breaking. Like, it's a really sharp sound.
I think if you had your stuff turned up really loud.
Yeah. Ooh.
For Cataclysm Classic, the Hunter, Scattershot now correctly breaks if the target takes damage and it's absorbed. Fuck. Cataclysm Classic, Hunter, Scattershot now correctly breaks if the target takes damage and it's absorbed. For Mage, Living Bomb not cooking off in that crowd you pulled, well, it will now when you pull it placed on multiple targets. For Paladin, speaking of bomb making, Hand of Sacrifice will now correctly break Scattershot and Dragon's Breath when damage is transferred to the crowd-controlled Paladin. Priest, still doing things one-handed? Well, Prayer of Mending won't interrupt your drinking now. If you've already cast Prayer of Mending, Chakra will not cancel it when that prayer comes flying back like a boomerang.
Oh, that's cool. It's kind of
Yeah.
like assuming you have two hands for casting. Like, that's kind of cool, actually.
Well, that makes sense, too, because you do only drink and eat with one hand.
Right.
In Warcraft. Let me sit down. Moving on to Druid. Remember they set Paladins to not have any holy power when entering an arena? Well, guess what, Druids? Now you can get that with Eclipse energy when starting a boss encounter. It just wrecks the PvE. Insect Swarm also is now considered as arcane and nature spell, and it'll benefit from both eclipses. For Death Knight,
Interesting.
yeah, it's a pretty good move.
What part of an insect swarm is arcane, I guess? Anyway,
I don't know, maybe calling them? I have no idea.
I guess. Now they're arcane wizards. Moving on.
Arcane, the wizards that change into cats.
Right.
For Death Knight, Death Coil was overhealing by 100%, but don't worry, Blizzard found out and removed the feature and balanced it to its intended 200%. For Rogue, Vendetta will no longer persist on the target when the Rogue specs out of the talent. For PvP updates, Paladin, the Light was gracious enough to provide Blessing of Sacrifice to break Psychic Scream. On Evoker, Chrono Loop is now usable in all areas. It seems Blizzard decided to lift the CC on the Evoker.
Right. I wonder, because it like wasn't working in some critical arenas and stuff. Like
Yeah.
you had said a specific arena it wasn't working in, which is kind of crazy. Maybe that's why we don't use it. Is I haven't really looked too much into that, but
Yeah, it was the one they mentioned was Black Rookhold Arena.
oh wow. Right.
But you said you don't even use that spell at all when we go PvP.
Right. That's why I'm wondering if that's why, because it doesn't work everywhere.
That could be it. Or is it actually useful?
Yeah, I guess I'll have to use it. I'll have to see now that they fixed it. I'll have to give it a
Yeah.
shot. Use Chrono Loop some fool.
Yeah. There are no PvE updates for this week. Jordan, do you want to take it away with the coming week?
Absolutely. So I'll start. There's no holidays. 4th of July is coming up, but I can't remember exactly what they call it in this game. But the 4th of July celebration is coming up, but isn't started yet. And then the events we have ending. We have the Battleground bonus event ends. This was a good event to grind honor for your alts, get your main started if you hadn't done any PvP yet this season. So if you missed it, don't worry, it'll be around again. They do a bunch of these Battleground bonus events. And this is the end of the Shadowpan Showdown. This is one of my favorite brawls. I'm always so sad to see it be a temporary thing, but they always bring it back around. It's never gone for long. I
Right.
wish they would explore this PvP, PvE type of content in the smaller group fashion a bit more. We do have the Epic Battlegrounds, which do have some PvE content. Well, debatably, some PvE content. But I think it would be cool to have like this dungeon experience. I understand they definitely wouldn't be able to do like a rated version of this, and there's going to be classes that are just really, really good at it, and there are going to be classes that are really, really bad at it. I see why they haven't taken it as seriously as like one of their rated modes. The events that we have starting this week, we have the Midsummer Fire Festival. This starts June 21st at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and ends on July 5th at 10 a.m. Pacific Time. The Midsummer Fire Festival is a time of merriment and festivities celebrating the hottest season of the year. Festival bonfires are lit around all of Azeroth and Outland, and players can travel to each to honor or desecrate their flames, respectively. The festival is a reference to the real-world midsummer celebrations during the summer solstice. There are a number of things to do during the Midsummer Fire Festival. Visit bonfires, toss flaming torches, or battle rogue elemental spirits. Visiting the various bonfires located throughout the world will reward you with gold and burning blossoms. A burning blossom is something which can be used to purchase various foods, festive clothing, or even the goofy toys, right? Players can also earn burning blossoms by completing the available festival daily quests. The most skilled of adventurers can choose to delve into the slave pens and battle the elemental Ahun. Completion of all the holiday achievements as specified in the Flame Keeper Horde or the Flame Warden Alliance. If you complete these, they will grant you the title Flame Keeper or Flame Warden respectively. So pretty cool. I actually have never done that before. The Mogs are okay. I think the transmogs look a little dated. They look okay on a Tauren. Like one of the sets is, he looks like he has fire on like platforms on his shoulder, so it just looks dated. But the titles I'm pretty interested in. I want to be a Flamekeeper. So also going on this week is the Dragonflight Dungeon event. While this event is active, the final boss of each Dragonflight dungeon awards an extra item when defeated. This means this is a dungeon week, right? This does include heroics and mythics and normals, but this does not include mythic keystones. So you'll still get the regular amount of loot from a mythic keystone this week. This is all other types of dungeons. This is a good week to get that character that you've been neglecting some gear, though, for sure. Or if you have a buddy who joined us, which we do. So we got some work to do with him this week, for sure. The PvP brawl this week is Warsong Scramble. Warsong Scramble is a PvP brawl set in Warsong Gulch. In this brawl, each team has 3 flags at their base, and players can capture enemy flags without their own flag at the base. The first team to capture 10 flags wins. Additionally, buff cubes are scattered throughout the Gulch and grant a one-time use of the following abilities when picked up. Arcane Prison. Conjures an arcane prison at the target location, blocking enemies from traveling through it. Attempting to travel through the prison will cause the enemy to be teleported to its center and stunned for 1 second. Lasts for 15 seconds, 40-yard range. That's pretty cool. That's like a super Ring of Peace, essentially, is what that is. Discombobulator Ray. Dismounts the enemy and reduces their combat effectiveness for 8 seconds. 40-yard range. Transforms the target player into a leaper gnome, reducing their damage and healing done by 30%. So that's crazy. You blast them with the ray, and then they turn into a crappy little gnome.
Yeah.
Gripping Chain. Fires a coiled chain at your enemy, pulling them to you. 5 to 60 or 60-yard range on the pull chain. Guess it's good you only use it once.
Yeah.
Mega Kick. Knock the enemy far into the air. Melee range. I think this is interesting. I think that the last couple of times it has been around, I've skipped it, and I do need to revisit it. I don't really like that they can cap flags without having your flag. It kind of makes it just mobile classes win in a lot of the sense here.
Oh, yeah.
Like you just a druid or a shaman just wolfs their ass across, right? We got to try and CC them or capture more flags, or it's kind of a madhouse. But, I mean, the brawls are, right?
Right.
I think the buffs are cool. It's a cool concept. It tastes almost like a little bit like a plunder storm. Almost feels a little bit like something like that.
Yeah, I could see that. It does.
Single use is kind of better. Makes it to where you don't have to have the best kit or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so that wraps up holidays and events this week. So we're going to move into the affixes this coming up week.
Woo!
Yeah, I know, one of your favorite this week.
Yes.
We have Tyrannical, Entangling, and Bursting this week. So Tyrannical is where boss enemies have 30% more health and inflict up to 15% increased damage. So this is a boss week. Don't get too happy just yet because we still have Bursting, which we will go over here shortly.
Interesting.
Remember, bosses hit harder and have a quite large amount of health. Fights will last longer and hurt more. Kill mechanics will kill harder. Entangling. So while in combat, entangling vines periodically appear and snare players. This one's pretty straightforward. It's kind of stinky if you're a cast mage, but you'll see you get essentially a vine that snares you and roots you, and you just have to walk or blink or disengage or, the list goes on. Heroic leap, charge, etc. You just have to get out of the entangling. Not super hard. If you stay in it, you get rooted and it hurts, so don't stay in it. And then bursting. When slain, non-boss enemies explode, causing all players to suffer 10% of their max health and damage over 4 seconds. This effect stacks. It's important to try and stagger the deaths of the enemy forces so that the debuff doesn't stack up too high. Be careful not to use too many AoE abilities, and try not to kill the monsters too soon. Like, this is Nick's favorite effects. He's Paladin player. He loves it.
It's the best. I love how I have to just wait on my AoE.
This is dispellable, but... So if you have a shaman, for example, with the poison cure totem, for example, there's ways to cheese a little bit. But generally speaking, you're going to have to slow down on trash. You can't just run through and do an enormous, huge pack pull because you have to spread these kills out. So this is a big topic. This one's pretty controversial. There's all kinds of opinions out there about these, and a majority of them are negative, I would say, at this time. So we're going to go over this a little bit, and this will probably bridge us a little bit into Tavern Talk, I think.
Yeah.
So, because this is going to be a hell of a talk.
Oh, yeah, the new fixes.
So while we're on hotfixes, let's talk about what they are planning to do with the War Within dungeons based on a recent post by Blizzard. So here's what they said.
Oh no.
Heroic and Mythic dungeons. In Dragonflight Season 4, we experimented with our existing dungeon difficulty progression to offer additional in-game options for players who enjoy a more methodical dungeon gameplay. This updated dungeon difficulty progression is also an opportunity for players that do enjoy Mythic Keystones to have a place to build mastery over dungeons before the pressures of a timer kick in. You can read more about those changes in depth here. We plan to continue this model of progression into the War Within with some exciting new changes. So normal dungeons, the difficulty is unchanged. They didn't change anything about normals. This difficulty always includes our 8 War Within dungeons. There's 4 level up dungeons, and there'll be 4 max level dungeons. The level up dungeons go as follows: the Rookery, the Stone Vault, the Priority of Sacred Flame, and the City of Threads. The max level dungeons are the Cinderbrew Meadery, the Dark Flame Cleft, the Dawnbreaker, and Arakara, City of Echoes. So in heroic dungeons, this is interesting. We're already starting to get interesting. They're turning up dungeon difficulty again.
Yeah.
The tuning and rewards of this difficulty are increasing to be equivalent to a baseline Mythic 0 dungeon in the previous system. So this means a heroic dungeon is going up to what the difficulty of a Mythic 0 is now. So they're going up harder. So heroics are going to be the new mythics. New mechanics and other adjustments from Mythic will not be present in this difficulty. So what that means is they're just turning it up harder. You don't get the specific Mythic abilities. Like some bosses on Mythic have additional abilities and things you have to do. That does not add those. It just makes heroic much more difficult. Or scaled much higher. Forgive me. This remains a queuable experience, starting with the Season 1 of the War Within. Heroic dungeon difficulty will feature our roster of seasonal dungeons. So that just means they're going to be on rotation now. It's not going to be just queuing for the 8 War Within dungeons. It's going to be doing the rotational dungeons now when you do the queue for heroic.
Kind of annoying.
I think it could be fine because it allows that heroic level to go along with the rotation. It also makes the queue be the rotation rather than it being the same dungeons the entire expansion, right?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so
makes sense.
I like it. I think it's okay. It's just a little bit more dicey for some newer players, but ultimately it gets them ready for getting into Mythic and ultimately keys. Mythic. Here we go. The tuning and rewards of this difficulty are increasing to be the equivalent of a plus 10 dungeon with affixes in the previous system. There are no timers, no affixes, and there's no limitations on changing specializations or talents while in the dungeon. This means they're just treating it like a non-time dungeon. If you want to swap specs in the middle of it, you can. It's about progression, right? Getting through each boss, taking your time with it. That's why they made it harder up again. So I think this is interesting. They're really taking this no timer dungeon thing pretty seriously.
Yeah.
The goal is to create a mega dungeon-like difficulty for this experience. This difficulty should present a meaningful challenge and provide good rewards without the pressure of a Mythic Plus system. Starting with Season 1 in the War Within, Mythic difficulty will feature our roster of seasonal dungeons. Mythic difficulty will be unavailable until the War Within Season 1 begins. Mythic difficulty will now have a daily lockout, changed from weekly in the previous system. So this is pretty cool. You get to loot it every day instead of every week now, which is much better if you need that one piece from, Dawn of the Aspects or whatever, right? Or Dawn of the Infinite, forgive me. But they're holding on to it until Season 1 comes out, which I think is interesting. You're only going to have Heroic for a bit.
It's true.
So while we're on the concept of Season 1, the seasonal dungeon roster for Heroic, Mythic, and Mythic Plus difficulties in Season 1 with the War Within includes the following dungeons. So from War Within, we have 4 of the dungeons coming into the rotation, 4 of the new ones. We have the Stone Vault, the Dawnbreaker, Akara, City of Echoes, and the City of Threads will be joining us from the War Within. We have Grim Patrol coming back from Cata. We have our favorite, Necrotic Wake, coming back from Shadowlands. We have an interesting one that I had forgotten about, but the Mists of Turnus Scythe from Panda, and then the Siege of Borealis from BFA. Interesting. The only one I really have a big gripe about is the Necrotic Wake, but it'll be fine. We'll get used to it.
So we hope.
Yeah, and so in Mythic Plus, the Mythic Keystone system will carry forward changes from the Dragonflight Season 4 with updates to the position of affixes in the system and updated affix buckets. With the Mythic Plus system, we have the rewards up to level 10 with a +2 starting from what would have been a +11 in previous Mythic Plus system. A +5 should be as hard as a +15, and a +10 should be as hard as a +20 in the previous Mythic system, etc. We intend to better align the reward and difficulty increases in the Mythic Plus system by updating the introduction points of the affixes in Season 1, The War Within. They are changing when the affixes come on is what's staying the same is you get Tyrannical and Fortified on every key. If it's a key, you have Tyrannical or Fortified.
Oh, goody.
They will have starting from keys 4 and higher, you will have a new set of passive affixes, which we're going to go over. And then +7 and on is the bursting, bolstering, etc. Dungeon ratings should be equivalent to what they were to represent in the current system. There should be a smaller range of keystone levels to find groups for and more meaningful progression between each level. This is keeping players less separate is what they're trying to do. They don't want, people doing 20, 25 keys, right? And then us doing like 10, 15s, right? That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to bring everybody closer together. I'm reading from Blizzard right here, right from the official post. Before we dive into the specifics of the new affixes, what we would like to outline is our goals and the purposes that these affixes serve. Our overreaching goal is to minimize the mechanical overlap between affixes and dungeon trash design in the current +4 affix bucket. We aim to achieve this through a more passive approach, focusing on the following objectives. Shift the source of challenge to the dungeon itself by simplifying affix design and emphasizing creature abilities. Reduce visual noise, nameplate clutter, and the cognitive load on players during trash combat. Allow for varied and context-specific gameplay decisions depending on the dungeon they are applied to. Additionally, these affixes will include a positive effect. The aim of these positive effects is to highlight the different damage types each week, allowing each specialization additional opportunities to excel during the season. These effects should feel like a bonus, offering an advantage for different damage profiles each week without being essential to complete the dungeon. Players will have an opportunity to flex towards different talents gearing options, and consumables to capitalize on this effect. So we're going to take our time reading this one, and we're going to go real slow with this, because now what they're saying they want to do, I agree with. I actually really like their goal with what they're doing here. What we just read sounds really good. I don't think it's what they did. So now we're going to read what they're doing. So there's 4 of these new affixes. You have Reckless, Thorned, Attuned, and Focus. And so Reckless goes as follows. Non-boss enemies without mana ignore 20% armor with their attacks, but their armor is also reduced by 30%, and they take 10% increased arcane damage. And so then Thorned is non-boss enemies without mana inflict physical damage to their attackers when attacked, but take 10% increased holy and shadow damage. Attuned. Non-boss enemies with mana inflict 20% increased magic damage, but take 10% increased nature damage and 30% increased damage from bleed effects. And then Focused. Non-boss enemies with mana have 30% increased to haste, but take 10% increased frost and fire damage. And so we talked about one of my least favorite things about the old affixes, where you'd have a week where Warrior isn't very effective, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about Reckless as an example here. Non-boss enemies without mana, which is the majority of the enemies in World of Warcraft, ignore 20% armor with their attacks. So your tanks, this sucks. And then second of all, any physical damage now is 20% armor, even if it's an AoE. But their armor is reduced by 30% and take 10% increased arcane damage. So this is interesting because their armor is reduced. This is good for physical melee, right? So, okay, I'm a warrior. I'm happy that week. Their armor is reduced. I heard a little bit more, or 10% more roughly, or whatever, this week because their armor is reduced. Sweet. Now it's next week. Now we have Thorned. Non-boss enemies without mana inflict physical damage to their attackers when attacked, but also take 10% increased holy and shadow damage. Like it just turns priests into broken week? Like priests are broken week?
Yes. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Or like it's like priests and warlocks. Now everybody's playing a priest or warlock this week, and that's just how it is. And if I'm playing my warrior, everybody's going to be like, no, it's holy and shadow. We wanted to have a couple more priests. We need a few more priests in here.
Well, and even
I hear it already.
Look at just paladins alone, too. We do holy damage or physical damage. None of it helps us.
Well, you do have 10% holy on the increased, and then when their armor is reduced is where it'll help with the physical damage. But so you actually have 2 weeks you can be decent, quote unquote.
2 out of how many though?
4, half the time.
So half the time going from, granted, I'm going from being useful all the time to half the time.
Yeah, it must suck, huh?
Yeah, it does, because I feel like I'm a warrior now. But still, it's the issue of they're making they're forcing us to play other classes at different times, and I don't really want to play a class a week. I want to have my main character.
Yeah, and imagine playing an arcane mage, for example.
Yes.
If it's focused week, you just can't. Nope. Why aren't you playing frost or fire? Come on.
Exactly.
It's Frost and Fire Week. What are you doing?
So the mages, for instance, too. People who love playing mage and that's their main. Now you have to run 3 sets of armor. Or 2, like whichever it is.
Well, read back to what they tried to say. Players have an opportunity to flex towards different talents, gearing options, and consumables to capitalize on these effects. What do you mean? It doesn't give you any itemization options.
It's so bad.
It's like, okay, I have to play. It gives you less. Like, I can't do arcane this week. I'm not super impressed with it. A lot of people aren't really super impressed with it. We had a couple of YouTubers that said explaining these affixes to new players would be difficult. I don't necessarily think that's true. I don't think it's necessarily any harder to understand than the affixes we already had. I don't know if I'd say it's easier necessarily, some of it, but I don't think the concepts are super hard to grab. I just don't think this is accomplishing their goal at all. It's like
it's not. I think they're doing the opposite of what they wanted to do.
And there has to be a balance. You want the dungeons to be fresh and challenging for a new reason, but this seems like you're just rolling the dice on what week it is, and hopefully they rolled on you. Hopefully you won class lottery this week.
Yeah, exactly.
Note that these tooltips indicate whether the affix is applied to the creatures with or without mana. These affixes will not affect every creature. With our new passive affix bucket set to replace the current +4 affix bucket, the following affixes will be retired for the Season 1 War Within. So some good news. Afflicted, Incorporeal, Entangling, Storming, and Volcanic will no longer exist for the Season 1 anyway. They'll be retired for now. That doesn't mean they'll never come back, but they'll be retired starting Season 1. Which, good to see Afflicted and Incorporeal go. I thought the rest of them were fine. Entangling's, decent enough. Volcanic's kind of annoying, and Storming is kind of goofy, so I'm okay with them. To match the number of affixes in our level 4 affix bucket and align with our affix goals in the War Within, we will be retiring the Spiteful affix for Season 1 The War Within. The +7 bucket includes the following: Raging, Bolstering, Bursting, and Sanguine. So they're just running 4 of the level 7 affixes instead of 5 of them now.
It'll still be good.
So Tyrannical and Fortified affixes, we're still experimenting with how these affixes fit into the other updates. We believe these changes will offer a refreshing experience for players at all levels in each season and redefine how Mythic Plus affix system influences dungeon gameplay. We look forward to your feedback and discussion on these topics, and we'll see you in dungeons. I don't know if they're going to be super excited about hearing how we feel about it, but not a lot of people don't like them.
I don't think I read a single thing that was positive.
Yeah, I didn't. The idea of what they're looking at positive is then you have like 30% increased damage from bleed effects, which is really weird and targeted. Like, okay, now it's Druid and Rogue week,
right?
And Warlock week. Like, it's just really weird, I guess I don't know what affixes I would make, to be honest. I don't know if I'm on team. I don't know if I'm on team no affix yet, but I don't know. This wasn't what I wanted, that's for sure. So I believe that's the end of the script. We got a little bit into the kind of freestyle off the script there for a little bit, but we'll be covered on that more as more news comes out. I'm sure they're going to make some changes based on the feedback, like they said they're going to try to. Yeah. So we'll see what they end up coming up with, if they change anything, or if they really are going to Shadowlands us and just send it. I guess we'll see.
God, just don't do it again.
Yeah. Well, it's a strategy they used in Shadowlands. No, shut up. You'll like it. I promise. Just wait.
It'll never work, no matter how many times you try it.
So, Tavern Talk. Nick, would you take a drink with me now that we made it this far? Well, God, what a crazy show. To Blizzard. For their beautiful affix ideas.
And their great drop rate.
Their excellent drop rate on their legendaries. To Blizzard. Huzzah! An extra drink for that one.
Huzzah!
Give me my legendary, Blizzard!
Where's the meme of "Let me in"?
Let me in! So I did say I was going to go off a little bit about healing and solo shuffles. I'm going to start there. I'll spin us off.
Take it off.
What? Are you farting?
No! It's someone's car.
Like, blah, 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 blah. I was like, holy shit, bro. Is it ever going to stop? So why I was thinking about taking a break from solo queuing in PvP. There is just so many people that are so terrible at positioning at the low end of solo shuffle. I have, last season, I got up to 1850 last season on solo shuffle, and this season I can't break like 50-60. It's crazy. I don't know if I'm getting super unlucky sometimes, but a lot of it is these guys don't know how to play with an Evoker at all. Like, I in solo shuffle, unless I get my combo chain off, like...
Is it like they're too far from you, or what do you mean?
It's line of sight, and then they either end up getting bursted, or so I can't really take a whole lot of time to drop damage.
Right.
I'm always healing almost twice sometimes what the other healer is. And a lot of the time doing more damage than him, too. And here I am, 0-6 in this solo shuffle. I'm like, what is going on? Like, how does that... And I'm struggling with it. I was talking to some of my buddies about it. And they're like, no, it's just like that, bro. People just don't know how to play with Evoker. They don't set you up. They don't CC lock. You don't have a shaman to work with you, for example, and lock people in the spot even longer. Or you don't have druid cyclones to make the damn... mage stop polymorphing you. It's literally like I'm trying to revive people in between CC stacks. I know Nullification Shroud. I have the trinket. I know how to do this. So I think I'm taking a break from the solo shuffles. You guys will have to wait longer in your queues, you fucking jackass DPS. Fuck you guys, honestly. Now we have to wait 30 minutes instead of 25. Have fun. One of your healers is done. I'm done with it.
I don't know if you're going to have that much impact.
No, well, I don't know. There's only like 3 of us out there. My queues for healers are like instant. It's like pop, da-da-da, and solo shuffle. Nobody's doing it. Nobody's healing in solo shuffles.
I don't know. I mean, I really would never want to heal PvP at all.
It's unique. That's for sure. Especially in a game like this.
Yeah, well, okay, I take that back. I might want to try doing the Holy Paladin once.
A Paladin?
She's geared. Yeah,
There's
no
right? way.
Oh my goodness. I'd never play a Paladin ever.
I know, you're just talking about how much you hate that class. It's the worst.
Yeah, it's the worst one in all of Warcraft. Nobody should play it.
Yeah, imagine doing an episode on it. We just couldn't. We can't.
No, we could never. I mean, the lore behind it's horrible. It's there's nothing there.
Nothing there. No, but sarcasm aside, pretty excited. We're actually recording that right after this, so
yes.
Coming out soon. Coming out very soon. So I think that's all I wanted to talk about in the solo shuffles. I wanted to ask you what your favorite and least favorite parts of that our threes we did with our homie. The Savage Chipotle.
So my favorite part is the fact that I just wreck as a paladin. It's good. I'm putting up millions.
You have bubbles. You have lay on hands. You get on your damn horsey.
What was like, the one and everybody hears that. I love it.
Right, like fuck that guy.
The one we did where they just wanted to kill me and I didn't die at all until like I think you or the monk went down and we were like, all right, we're tossing it, and then I was like, okay, cool, I'll just stand here and take it. Right. Like how much they did like 11 million damage and my health is 1 mil. So I was like, okay, cool, you killed me basically 11 times. That was fun. What I don't enjoy about it is how frustrating it can be when you get very, very close to taking somebody out and then the healer realizes it or they realize it and they have some sort of mitigation to that.
Right, they turtle or they bubble or they divine him or they lay on hands or they right.
But it's part of PvP. And I mean, I do that too because I'll let them smack me down. Yeah, or I'll lay on hands because then I got a 7-minute cooldown on that. Yeah, so it's fun. Overall, it's fun, and I've enjoyed the hell out of PvP, especially with you and our monk. Like, we're getting pretty good.
Yeah. It's definitely a stark difference.
Oh, yeah.
From the experience I had in Solo Shuffle, for sure. It's nice just to be able to make calls. I'm like, line of sight, range, and you know what I mean? I can just do stuff like that.
The communication we have is so much better in doing it that way than I'm sure it is ever in a Solo Shuffle.
Right, they're like, well, the healer didn't heal me. It's like you teleported your ass through a portal across the map. What am I gonna do?
Yeah, and an Evoker only has a 30-yard range. Why are we doing this?
Right, and then behind pillars or stairs. Oh God, stairs. Oh my God, stairs. The one true enemy.
The bane of your existence.
Stairs. No, it's not the warlock. Focus the stairs.
PvP's been great. I'm enjoying the hell out of it. I want to get more gear going on that so I can start having a full set.
Start really murderizing.
Yeah.
Turning him into ground alliance burgers.
We
have a girl for that. We'll smoke them, yeah.
Yeah. We'll just set up shop in Orgrimmar. It'll be easy.
Shit, easy money.
The guild will always have money flowing in.
Right. Yeah. Net positive for sure. Yep, my favorite part about it is when it's narrow or close and you end up getting the sleepwalk off on the other healer. Oh my God, yes. Or you end up getting the one you were the turn the needle. You were the thing that made you win. Like that part, it's absolutely nothing feels like
what do you mean?
That happens. Like I'm able to do a rescue on somebody and then a Verdant Embrace and pull them out of like the shaman crap or whatever.
Yeah.
and then we won because I did that, because he lived long enough, and we were all in range for my breath or, my anomaly, for example.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of really, really cool parts I like about it. I like playing with friends the most. It's really, really nice. Really, really nice playing with friends. It's definitely better than randoms.
Oh, definitely. I'd rather be playing with all of us than randoms. A, the communication, and B, we're solid. Like we were yelling at each other one time, and we got out and we're like, he went, I hope you know I'm not angry. I was like, no, I know you're not. We were just in the moment. Like, I'm not pissed at all. Like, we're good.
Yeah.
We're sitting there shouting at each other.
Nick and I have played games like Counter-Strike and stuff together, so we have a pretty good understanding of that, for sure.
Yeah, when it's in the game, it's there's no emotion to it. It's just this needs to happen now.
Yep, I'm just saying it. Yeah, because what was I saying?
You guys were taking out the priest or something, and I was focused on the Death Knight because all of my mobility break was spent.
Well, I was like saying like priest now or priest or something like that.
And I was like, I fucking can't.
Right, yep, I remember.
And then I just ended up getting the Death Knight down anyways, and then rolled over and helped you guys.
Because we were like, all right, healer, now you're not gonna be able to heal that damn Death Knight anymore.
Right, yeah. And then you guys, me staying on him and us fighting with shitty mobility, and then you guys pulling that priest around the side to where he was either out of range or out of sight. That's what nailed his coffin.
Yeah,
that was good.
Yeah, pretty cool. So I think that's all I wanted to talk about. I think we did everything this week. A little bit of a short tavern talk, but a long regular episode. So
yeah, it is. Well, we had a lot to cover with the new fixes stuff, and
we did a little tavern talk in the middle of it this time a little bit.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm on the fence of it. I don't like it a lot. I think I'm more on the I don't like it side because it feels like it's more, like you said, class lottery every week. I like the old fixes. There were some issues I had to fix in them where how you are not able to be used. What week was it? Where the
Afflicted and Incorporeal.
Yeah.
Cleanse week and then hard CC week.
Yeah. So if they gave you some sort of hard CC or something, or made it to where it would also work on them, like shield bash or some shit, I don't know.
Right.
Then you become used to you're able to be utilized that week, and those aren't hard to fixes either. They're not.
No, they're not bad.
No.
I think I would have rather had the old ones, I guess. Yeah. Give me the old ones over these new ones, but
yeah. No, I like the old ones, and I think I'm more on the bandwagon of keeping them than getting rid of them for these new ones.
Right.
But
we're both on team affixes need to be in the game. That's how we feel. Feel free to argue with us for sure. We want to hear all opinions on that.
I think it makes the game more challenging, and I like it because how else are you going to do it?
It keeps it fresh too.
But the only thing you can do is have a linear progression of damage and health, and that's going to get boring. Like, there's no additional challenge really to how the game operates inside the dungeon, versus to having those affixes in there.
Right, and it does teach you it does make you learn cool things like what is a cleanse, what is an interrupt, what is my hard CC.
Yeah, it forces you to have to know those things and change up your spec for it. Because I know when it's cleanse week, I have to trade out a talent point so I can go make sure I have cleanse.
My Evoker has to take sleepwalk on Incorp week. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. We even glossed over the fixes a little bit more.
Yes.
So far what I've seen from the dungeons in the beta, I guess I'll go over that a little bit. What I've seen in the dungeons in the beta, they all look pretty well designed. They're not supposed to be super break your legs off hard. I don't want to spoil it too much. Maybe we'll talk about some of them, but I've done the City of Threads, and I've done the Cinderbrew Meadery, and I've done the City of Echoes.
But you've enjoyed everything you've done?
I have liked them. I actually can't remember what the name of the dungeon is, but the one with the candle knolls, and you have to go through the darkness.
So bad.
I'm not a fan of it. The darkness is pretty. Yeah,
well, they've done that a couple times because they did that. I think it was BFA when they had that spider drop in the last boss. You have the light that can only see the spirits, and you have to find the hole on the platform. Otherwise, you get knocked off or die.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, this is more like you have to follow the minecart and keep it lit so that way you can. Because if it gets too dark, you can't heal your buddies or target anything. It's fucking scary.
Okay, that's interesting. I'll have to get into that because
I'm sure once I understand the mechanic better. I only did it once, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure once I understand the mechanic better, it won't be as scary. But that's the only one that really intimidated me out of all of them. But yeah, I guess Nick, do you want to send us off?
I guess I can. This has been another episode of the Valley Spirits with your hosts, favorite Horde players, Jordan and Nick. You can find us in Valdrakken on the Mal'Ganis server. You can find our guild by searching for the Electric Boogaloo. You can also find us on Facebook, X, Twitter, YouTube, whatever the kids are using these days, by searching the Valley Spirits podcast. And as always, for the Horde.
For the Horde.